Hello, Loveland. I'm Mike Meldon, and this is your Loveland Weekly Podcast, brought to you by Gina Dubell-Smith, eXp Realty, and Stone Pillar Farm. Today we have a truly special guest with us, Chris Corballis of Roaming Rovers. Chris brings a unique and refreshing approach to dog training, and today we're diving deep into his world of canine companionship. With years of experience in the field, Chris has a remarkable philosophy when it comes to training our furry friends. You see, Chris believes that while some dogs may need to be boarded for training, the key to true success lies in working closely with the owner and the dog in the comfort of their own home and spaces. It's all about that beautiful bond between pet and human and how it can transform both. Chris's company, Roaming Rovers, doesn't just stop at training though. They offer a menu of different training services, and they also provide those essential walking and boarding services. It's like a one-stop shop for all your dog's needs. I must say, I learned a lot from my conversation with Chris. It's amazing how his insights have made me reevaluate my own relationship with my dogs. It's all about progress and success, not just for our beloved pets, but for us too. So without further ado, sit back, relax, and enjoy my conversation with Chris Corballis of Roaming Rovers. Trust me, you're in for a treat. Get it? Today is Monday, October 9th, 2023.
So I initially got started working with animals about 10 and a half years ago. I was living in Chicago. At that time, I had been doing graphic design work and t-shirt design for a company in Wrigleyville. And I kind of hit that point where it just was like there was the owners and then right below me. So I kind of left, and I was already doing freelance graphic work and other things, photography and stuff on the side. So I wanted to kind of just supplement a little bit more income. I've always loved working with animals, and I've also loved working with children. But I was like, I paid off all my college tuition and loans and stuff like that. So I was like, let me go with animals. So I just found a local dog walking company, and I started working with them about 25 hours a week, which is great because actually the owner of the company was from the same place that I was, Staten Island, New York, and New York City. So that was kind of like, oh my gosh, when you meet another person in a different city, it's almost like meeting an American in Europe. You're like, exactly. Oh my gosh, hi. So that was really, really great because I got to work with a lot of different breeds and learn quite a bit about different characteristic traits and genetics and things like that, but also do a little bit of caretaking. And then eventually, my girlfriend at the time, who is now my wife, we ended up leaving Chicago and ultimately moving upstate New York rather. So we had 2 dogs at that time, so I started dabbling in training here and there, but it really wasn't until the tail end of the pandemic, where my wife and I were living in upstate New York. We were just kind of wanting to get out of New York in general. She's from Ohio originally, and I had been back many times in the, probably at that point, 8 years we had been together. So I was ready up for a change. So we decided to let's move to Ohio. And then with the pandemic and everything, we had already decided we're going to just take a few months off after we had moved, and just take our time easing back into it. So I felt this was like a really perfect time it was really just a clean slate for me personally, where I wasn't really married to any one job or anything like that. I was in a new state, living in a new place. So I reached out to a local daycare and boarding place in Loveland. And so that's where I really kind of dove in. And then through there, I ended up working for a local dog training franchise, just as a kennel tech, taking care of the dogs. Then I eventually moved up, became a trainer from there. And then I was pretty much, I was a trainer there. But I primarily focused on doing board and trains. So someone who has behavioral issues with their dog, they would bring their dog to us. We would keep them at the facility for anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks. Each week or so, we would touch base back with the owner, show them where we are in terms of what we've been working towards the training goals. Then we take the dog back to the facility. And then all in all, after the time is done, bring the dog back. And then that's where my issue really kind of lied, because I'm with the dog 85, 90% of the time.
Right.
And then I'm really just with them for about the last 10% of just catching them up and showing them. So that's where I felt like the disconnect could really kind of hit the surface, where I'm doing my best to get the dog as close to 100% as possible, or what I thought would be a realistic goal for their training goals. And then we bring the dog home. I start to, give the driving the wheel to the owner essentially, and then I'm catching them up and working with them. Every day the owner is trying to reach where the dog is. The dog is slowly getting more comfortable going back home.
Yeah.
So after a couple weeks, where the dog was at, let's say 94%, now maybe they're at 78%, and then it kind of ebbs and flows. And with the with the board and train structure.
Now wait, let me stop you.
Yeah.
When you say percentage, you're talking about how much they're hitting the goals that you're giving.
So like when they came in versus where they are, like obviously you're always shooting for 100%. It's never going to be 100%, but I'm trying to get them as close to.
So you get them to the 100, then you bring in the owner, and then you see actually the owner learning, but the dog's actually coming down again.
Yeah, and that can, because after about a week of doing a board and train, I'll schedule a mid-session with the owner. And then they would either come to the facility or I would go to their home. I kind of will go over the basics of, like, this is where we've been so far. You take the wheel a little bit, see how it feels and everything like that. But those mid-sessions really are only 60 to 90 minutes. After I've worked with that dog for 7-8 days in a row for 3-4 sessions at a time, and each session can be 30 minutes. So I already put in a lot of hours on top of the other pieces of structure that we're implementing along the way, whether it's crate time or just like learning how to stay on place and watch while I work other dogs, and just overall instilling calmness and a new mindset essentially.
So how long has this, I mean, you may not be able to answer this question. Growing up, I never heard of something like this. I heard about it in the last 10 years or so.
Right, yeah.
Is it a newer model?
I can't necessarily pinpoint when it started, but I would definitely say, same thing in those last, like, for me personally, 5-6 years or so, board and train has definitely become more common.
Getting popular.
Yeah, and I do think it is beneficial for dogs that have serious behavioral issues, talking about like really high dog reactivity where it borderlines aggression to human aggression. Like, I've worked with dogs before where they come in wearing a muzzle and I don't take the muzzle off until day 5, because I only have one chance to take that muzzle off and put it back on. So I need to establish trust, establish respect, start to get the inklings of love a little bit, and then I really read the dog's body language. There's a bunch of different tells that really I'm like, okay, I think I can do it right now, and then take it off, and then you get to see that moment and build off of that from there.
But your company's different than this, though, right?
Yes, correct. So that I do believe is extreme. I think it is necessary for a certain percentage of dogs' aggression. It helps to kind of reset, because in that time you're also resetting the owners, and that's really what I'm doing in general. The same as board and trains, but in the board and train model, the dogs truly need an entire reset, and I do feel like it does work. So a lot of where I learned there, I mean, it was great because I dealt with I came in with aggressive dogs being thrown at me already, so I was already thrown into that fire, which is great. So now what I do is, since I've kind of seen those disconnects after the dogs have been home, or owners sometimes owners just think like, oh, my dog's trained, and it's like, it's like anything. It's a marathon, and
a lot of them want that. Yeah, they think I'm giving it away, and I'm going to get this new dog here that I have to work with minimally because you did all the work. But that's not the case. Yeah,
and that's not always the case. There are board and trains where I have friends or clients where they have another dog where they've done a board and train for multiple months, and that's where you see like a real difference.
Sure.
It's almost like a boarding school essentially. But what I do is I am working with the owner, so the owner and the dog are making progress in real time at the same time. And what I'm also doing is, I'm training the dog, but I'm training the owner a lot more. Because a lot of the things that I encounter are just, the dog is reading the situation incorrectly, where maybe like when I'm thinking of one particular dog where I walk into the house and the dog immediately has to growl and take over the situation because the owners aren't being assertive enough or whatever the situation is. A lot of it is just resetting the mentality and the mindset of the owner and kind of showing the dog is like, hey, you don't have to behave like that. I've got this. It's under control. So I kind of bring more clarity to the relationship and kind of the hierarchy. It's not that the dog is below the human. It's just like they're the co-pilot. The human, the owners, any handler, they're the, first in charge, captain of the ship, whatever you want to call it. The dog, next in line. So I really start to bring clarity to those relationships in general. Structure is huge. Dogs are task driven by nature. So if we don't give them a job, they will make a job for themselves. So if you have a dog that's reactive for whatever reason, and then you're like, yeah, I don't know why it does this, but then over time, I come in, I'll do a meet and greet with a family, and I'm like, does your dog always sit at the window and wait? Because that's their job. When Amazon comes, barking, Amazon, they hear the dog, they hear it all day. They're just there, scan the package, they go back, get in the truck, and then they leave. And the dog's like, don't worry, guys, I told them to leave. Job. That's the job. So same thing sometimes with invisible fences. They're a great idea, but sometimes left unattended, the dog's going to create a job. The dog's going to know where that barrier is. So it sees a person, a kid on a bike, someone skateboarding, a jogger, person with another dog. They may run right up to the very end and bark at you the entire time while you walk by. And then that is, imagine you're walking by and someone just yelling at you from their front porch. And you're like, this is kind of boiling my blood right now.
Right.
So if you have a dog that's antagonizing you and your dog, and then you start to notice a behavioral shift in your dog on leash, those are those types of things where relationships, holding your dog accountable, like that's where I come in. I tell clients this all the time, like your backyard is not a babysitter. So I have a lot of clients where they may share a backyard. So, and that other family has a dog as well. So then there's two dogs running the fence, and it can cause a rift between neighbors. That's because I understand why, because people want to just be able to let their dog out and go potty and whatever else. But it's like sooner or later, that's not enough for your dog. They need mental stimulation. They need physical stimulation as well. And I mean, if you leave a dog in the backyard, it's very rare that you're going to just see your dog doing laps like a kid practicing like basketball practice or something like that. That's why. So my whole philosophy and in general how I train is relationship building and engagement. So if you have a dog with behavioral issues such as reactivity or resource guarding, the list goes on, I want to do my absolute best to build the best possible relationship for you and your dog. So over time, there is that saying, don't bite the hand that feeds you. So hopefully, if you're hand feeding your dogs their meals while you're out doing training sessions, maybe they won't be like, oh yeah, I'm just going to turn around and flip a switch on you in general. If there is a particular situation where those, training aspects aren't working, there may be other dynamics at play that, we have to dig deeper in general. So, but ultimately, first and foremost, my goal is to strengthen the relationship between the owner and the dog, because the less likely walking feels like a chore for an owner, the more likely the dog's going to go on more walks. More walks equals more enrichment and more fulfillment. A happier dog is going to be a calmer dog. So, and I really have seen great results. More people who put in that time with the dogs, you're going to have a best bud for a long, long time.
Yeah, I know people specifically in Loveland that I've talked to that have paid a lot of money for these boarding things, 3 weeks or more, thousands and thousands of dollars, and then they get home. And I think, like you said, they got trained, but then when they get home, they don't feel like it's the same. They feel like they've lost it, forget about it, and then they've told me they just quit. Almost like that waste of time, because they're just like, I didn't feel like I was doing it right, like they taught me, and blah blah blah. And they're like, well, how can I go? I think you're reaching a need that you saw while you were doing that process for so long, because I don't know much about it, but I've seen this need out there. Yeah. And I can't tell you, too, I have 2 dogs at home. Right. So many things you've just mentioned.
Right.
I'm like, oh, my gosh. I mean, lights are going off in my head like I have some work to do.
Yeah, so that's really where I feel like has been a huge success in general with the business, because I'm able to show in real time the difference that can be made with engagement and building and strengthening the relationships between the owners and their dogs. And how the whole thing works is, each training session that I do, I have two different training programs: a 6-week on-leash training program and a 7-week off-leash training program. But each session is about an hour long. Wherever we end with each session, I will give you homework. So that homework essentially helps you. I'm handing that torch back to you. You keep it lit until our next session starts again.
Right.
And that homework is going to hopefully continue to move the needle closer to where our training goal was. Now, that does not mean like, okay, see you next time or whatever. I'm reaching out to you every other day. I don't want to do every day because I don't want to be a pain in the butt. But I'm also like, I'm working with a bunch of other people, and I want it to be less babysitting and more like a coach.
Right.
But also like someone who like lights a little fire underneath you and holds you accountable to those things, because accountability is really where the dogs slip, where they're like, oh, mom and dad are slacking right here. They take an inch, they take a foot, they take a yard, and then boom, they go right back into it. So holding your dogs accountable, being consistent with those particular situations in general, really, you can start to see shifts fairly quickly, depending on what the overall training goals were. I don't want to like generalize everything. Each dog's needs and owners' needs are different, and every training program that I create with the clients and owners is customized to fit them. The first couple weeks we really like strip everything down, and I'm a huge advocate for using the leash as a form of communication. So once we start to show our dogs the behaviors and encourage those behaviors that we want to see more of in very calm settings, then we start to address those individual training goals that were listed by the owner, and then we'll start to go to busier parks. If your dog is reactive around dogs, we may go to a dog park but work outside of it, so they learn how to like keep a calm mindset while there are other dogs off leash running around going crazy barking. But that dog is dialed in with us, and we're staying engaged with one another. We may go to stores, whatever the situation is. We may work with your brother's dog you just want to help them socialize. I do vet visits with people, just anything that can take the edge off of it, because sometimes, and comes from a good place, but training and positive reinforcement, sometimes you may be reinforcing the wrong behaviors. So if you're kind of like, you tell your dog to sit, and then you're like, yes, good, but then you fumble with the treat, and then you go to reward, and then they jump up and reward. You just rewarded as they were doing something you didn't want to do. So like timing is essential when it comes to marking the dog's behavior that you want to see more of, but it's also it's a very fine line of what you're reinforcing. Like, take for instance, a dog steals a sock, and you're like, give that back. You grab a treat, and you're waving it.
Yeah.
They drop the sock. You give it to them. That's a bribe. Your dog steals a sock.
They're going to want to steal the sock every time.
Well, that, or they say they steal the sock. They know, they shouldn't have it, but humans, we make mistakes every day, do things we shouldn't do in general. But say they steal the sock. Instead of you saying, hey, I have this over here, if you've gone through training and you've worked on a recall or the come command, you say, hey, Bentley. They look at you, come. They come to you, they sit, and then they drop the sock. So what you've done is you've actually asked for a command. They've come and answered that command. They drop the sock, you reward that. So instead of, that's a paycheck. So I want to give dogs paychecks instead of bribes. So essentially, there's a bunch of different behaviors that you can do in general that will help, and that stealing the sock issue is a whole other thing about how not to have that happen. But that's just that's an example of how the rewarding is such a fine line of what am I actually rewarding. So, like I said, more paychecks, less bribes.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's cool. What do you want to add? What do you want the people to know? We got 2 minutes.
Yeah, so I have 2 different training programs, a 6-week on-leash program, a 7-week off-leash program. I won't go into the total details of it, but the one thing that I do want to put out there is I do work very closely with local shelters. Anyone in the Cincinnati area, not just Loveland, if you have a dog that has been rescued from a local shelter. It could even be like maybe you lived in Indy for a while and then moved here and your dog was rescued from there. I offer a 20% discount off of all of my training programs. I do offer payment plans. I want training to be accessible, affordable, and not something that is gatekept by myself. On my Instagram page for the business, I do my best to post as many other training videos as well. Like I said, it's not this big secret. I want more people to get excited about training their dogs and working with their dogs. The more people that are excited about doing that, the more you'll have excited dogs. More excited dogs, maybe that will mean you'll get a second dog, or maybe you'll refer me where I can help someone who just rescued a dog from a local shelter. And then we just keep this cycle of, love and everything, just working with one another, humans and dogs.
And better relationship.
Yeah, exactly. And that's really what it comes down to. So I would say just visit the business website, where it's just roamingroversohio.com. You can kind of touch base on the different behavioral things that we handle in general, but it's like crate training, puppy training, reactivity. I'm open to do anything. I at least talk to anybody. I don't say yes to everything, because there are things that you should go somewhere else. Like, I'm not trying to train everybody. I want everybody to get the best possible training that they need, and I have no problem referring you to another trainer that may be better, or maybe they have a facility if your dog really needs some intense help. But yeah, and I just want to try to help as many dogs and people who are like struggling in general, to try to maybe just make it a little less difficult for people.
For everybody.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Hey, it's Elise Nafschafer back with another Loveland High School weekly update. This week is a pretty big week, as it marks the last week of our quarter, so everyone is trying to get in their final grades, final projects, all the stuff to wrap up the quarter and get things in good shape. We also have Exploration Wednesday this week, which is a tool that we use to help us with college, career, future, beyond. So freshmen will be off-campus job shadowing. Sophomores and juniors will be at the high school taking one of 4 tests: the PREA-ACT, PSAT, Work Keys, or ASAVB. Seniors will also be off campus, and they have the option to job shadow, volunteer, or go on a college visit. This week for athletics, we have 1 volleyball game at home and 2 boys soccer games at home, as well as the last home football game of the year versus Winton Woods. So make sure to show up and support your Tigers.
In Loveland City news, name the new parking lot. The city's allowing citizens to brainstorm a name for the downtown's new parking lot coming in 2024. It's building a new 147-space parking lot in the historic downtown, as many of you are aware. And the city is hosting a campaign to brainstorm a name for the new lot. So submit your best idea by November 28th. You can submit your idea through loveandlifeloveland.com. I'll put a link on my webpage also. Entries are accepted from October 9th to November 28th. There's only 1 entry per person. You must be age 12 or older, and it's open to City of Loveland residents. Looking ahead in Loveland, Life Empty Bowls event. Enjoy a nice lunch for a good cause. Enjoy warm soup, fresh bread, and decadent desserts provided by local sponsors, and take home a beautiful handmade pottery bowl donated from local artists. All for only $25. The proceeds benefit the Loveland Life Food Pantry. 2 seatings are offered, 11 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. and 1 p.m. to 2:30 p.m. while supplies last. Each seating is limited to 150 people, and the event is expected to sell out. In addition, take-home containers of soup will be available while supplies last for additional cost. This event is this Saturday, October 14th, so to make sure you get a spot, go in and register. You can register through the city's Love and Life page, or I have a link on my page, www.lovelandweeklypod.com. We have something truly special here in Loveland. Thank you for listening, and have a great week. This episode was produced and engineered by On Brand Studios and recorded at Grailville, a magical place here locally like no other. Please note that the opinions expressed in the podcasts do not necessarily represent the views of our sponsors or organizations.